The great council hall buzzed with its usual noise. Hundreds of beings from different worlds filled the massive space. The Zephyrians sat in their floating chairs, their blue skin glowing softly under the bright lights. The Corthory delegates stood tall and proud, their metal armor making small clicking sounds when they moved. Near the back, the crystal-like Vex creatures hummed in harmony as they shared thoughts with each other. Counselor Vex-9 tapped his 6 fingers on the metal table. He was one of the older Zephyrians, and he had been coming to these meetings for over 50 years. Today felt different, but he could not put his finger on why. The usual business was happening. Trade agreements were being discussed. Military reports were being read. Resource-sharing plans were being argued about. The morning session dragged on. Representative Kor from the Corthory military spoke about border patrols. The Vex Collective shared data about mineral mining on the outer planets. A small group of traders from the Centauri system complained about shipping costs. Everything seemed normal, but something was missing. Vex-9 looked around the hall. His old eyes moved from section to section, counting the different species present. Zephyrians, Corthory, Vex, Centaurians, the small furry nibblings, the tall arachnids, and dozens of other races. They were all here, talking and arguing and making deals just like always, but where were the humans? He scanned the section where the human delegation usually sat. The chairs were empty. Not just empty, they looked like they had been empty for a while. There was a thin layer of dust on the table in front of the human seats. The small name plates that said Earth and Human Coalition were still there, but no one sat behind them. Vex-9 tried to remember the last time he had seen Ambassador Sarah Chun or any of her team. Was it last week? Last month? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Humans did not come to every meeting, that was true. They often sent messages instead of showing up in person. But they always sent something. A representative, a recorded message, or at least a formal notice saying they would not attend. The old Zephyrian tapped his communication device. He sent a quick message to his assistant. When was the last human delegation at council? He typed. The answer came back in seconds. No record of human attendance in the past 6 weeks. 6 weeks? That seemed impossible. Humans were always involved in something. They traded with everyone. They had colonies scattered across the galaxy. They ran shipping routes and communication networks. How could they just not show up for 6 weeks? During the lunch break, Vex-9 walked over to where Kor was eating with some other Corthory officers. The big warrior looked up as the Zephyrian approached. Kor, my friend, Vex-9 said. Have you seen any humans lately? Kor stopped chewing. His food, his large eyes, which were usually sharp and focused, looked confused. Humans? No, I do not think so. Why do you ask? Their seats have been empty for weeks. I cannot remember the last time I saw Ambassador Chun or any of her people. Kor thought for a moment. Now that you mention it, I have not received any reports about human ships in our territory recently. That is strange. They usually have cargo vessels passing through every few days. A Vex crystal being named Harmony 7 floated over to join the conversation. The Vex did not eat food like the other species, but they often came to the dining area to socialize. We have noticed the absence as well, Harmony 7 said in their musical voice. Human trading posts have been quiet. Their communication networks have not responded to our data sharing requests. Vex-9 felt a small knot of worry forming in his stomach. How long has this been going on? We first noticed the silence 3 weeks ago, Harmony 7 replied. We assumed they were having technical problems. Humans often have technical problems. The 3 beings looked at each other. None of them wanted to say what they were all thinking. In a galaxy full of different species, it was not unusual for one group to be quiet for a while. But humans were different. They were everywhere. They talked to everyone. They were involved in everything. For them to just disappear without a word was very strange. After lunch, the council session continued. Vex-9 tried to focus on the discussions about mining rights and trade routes, but his mind kept wandering to the empty human seats. During a boring presentation about crop yields on the farming worlds, he sent messages to contacts across the galaxy. "Have you seen any humans recently?" he asked his friend who worked at the large spaceport on Centauri Prime. "Not for weeks," came the reply. "Now that you ask, the docking bay they usually rent has been empty. Their scheduled cargo runs never showed up." He sent another message to his cousin who lived near the edge of human space. "Any human activity in your sector?" "Everything is quiet here." "Too quiet." "The humans who run the supply depot have not been seen in over a month." More messages went out. More strange answers came back. No one had seen humans. Their ships were not flying. Their colonies were not responding to communications. Their businesses were closed or running on automatic systems. As the afternoon session ended, Vex-9 stood up and walked to the center of the hall. He raised his hand to get attention. The noise in the great chamber slowly died down as hundreds of beings turned to look at him. "My fellow council members," he said in a loud voice, "I need to ask an important question. When was the last time any of you had contact with humans?" The hall went completely silent. Beings looked at each other with confusion and growing worry. Whispered conversations started in dozens of different languages. A nibbling delegate raised her small furry hand. "I tried to contact the human agricultural station last week. No answer." A tall arachnid clicked his mandibles nervously. "Human merchant ships have not arrived at our ports for over a month." One by one, more beings spoke up. All told the same story. No humans, no messages, no ships, no trade. No communications, nothing. Councillor Vash, the current council leader, stood up at the main podium. She was a Corthary female with silver armor and a serious expression. "This is very concerning," she said. "Humans may not attend every meeting, but they are active in every part of the galaxy. For them to just vanish is not normal." She paused and looked around the hall. "I'm calling for an emergency investigation. We need to find out what happened to the humans. We need to check their colonies, their space stations, and their homeworld. Something is wrong, and we need to know what it is." The hall erupted in worried chatter. Some beings suggested that maybe humans were having a civil war. Others thought they might be dealing with a plague or natural disaster. A few wondered if they had been attacked by some unknown enemy, but deep in his heart, Vex-9 felt that something much stranger was happening. Humans did not just disappear. They did not go quiet. They always had something to say, something to sell, something to fix, or somewhere to go. For them to simply vanish without a word meant something big had happened. As the council session ended and beings began to leave the hall, Vex-9 looked one more time at the empty human seats. The dust on their table seemed thicker now, and the silence where their voices should have been felt heavier than before. Captain Zara 4 guided her ship through the empty space around New Terra, one of humanity's largest colonies. She had been searching for 3 days now, and what she found made no sense at all. Her crew of mixed species sat quietly at their stations, all of them staring at the screens showing the planet below. The colony looked perfect. Too perfect. "Run another scan?" Zara 4 ordered her science officer, a young Zephyrian named Keth 2. Keth 2 worked at his controls for several minutes. "Captain, the results are the same. All the buildings are intact. Power is running normally. Life support systems are working. But there are no life signs anywhere on the planet." Zara 4 felt a chill run through her crystal body. She was Vex, and her species did not usually feel fear the way others did. But this situation was wrong in ways that made her core vibrate with worry. "Take us down to the main city," she commanded. The ship descended through the clear atmosphere. New Terra had always been one of the most beautiful human colonies. Rolling green hills surrounded a modern city with tall glass buildings and wide parks. Rivers ran clean and clear through the settlement. Gardens bloomed with flowers from Earth and dozens of other worlds, but as they flew over the city, they saw no movement. No vehicles on the roads, no people walking in the streets, no children playing in the parks, nothing. They landed in the central plaza, where a large fountain still sprayed water high into the air. The landing area was clean and well maintained. Automated systems were clearly still working. But where were the people who built all of this? Zara 4 led a small team out of the ship. The air was fresh and warm. Birds sang in the trees that lined the walkways. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the hum of machinery keeping the city running. Everything seemed normal except for one very big problem. There were no humans anywhere. Spread out, Zara 4 told her team. Look for any signs of what happened here. Check the buildings, the homes, the shops. Look for messages, recordings, anything that might tell us where they went. The team split up and began searching. Zara 4 walked into what appeared to be a restaurant. Tables were set with clean plates and glasses. The kitchen was spotless. Food was stored properly in cooling units, still fresh. But half-eaten meals sat on some tables, as if people had simply stood up in the middle of eating and walked away. She moved to a nearby apartment building. The doors were unlocked. Inside, she found homes that looked like people had just stepped out for a moment. Beds were made, clothes hung in closets. Children's toys were scattered on living room floors. Pictures of smiling human families decorated the walls. In one apartment, she found a cup of coffee sitting on a kitchen table. When she touched the cup, it was still slightly warm. Her communication device buzzed. It was Keth 2. Captain, you need to see this. I am at the government building. Zara 4 hurried through the empty streets to meet him. The government building was a large structure made of white stone and glass. Inside, the offices were neat and organized. Computer screens still glowed with information. Filing systems were perfectly arranged. Keth 2 was standing in front of a large computer terminal in what looked like the main administrative office. Captain, look at this. The screen showed the colony's status reports. Everything was green. All systems were working normally. Population count showed 0, but all the infrastructure was running as if nothing had changed. Check the logs, Zara 4 said. When did the population count drop to 0? Keth 2 worked at the keyboard. His 6 fingers moved quickly over the human-designed controls. According to this, the change happened 4 weeks ago. But Captain, look at this. He pointed to another section of the screen. The last entry in the administrative log was made yesterday. Someone or something is still maintaining the systems. Zara 4 studied the information. What does the entry say? It is just routine maintenance reports. Power grid checked and functioning. Water treatment working normally. Waste management systems operating correctly. But no human names are attached to the reports. They are all marked as completed by something called Automated Caretaker System. They spent the rest of the day searching the colony. Every building they entered told the same story. People had been there recently, but now they were gone. Not kidnapped, not killed, not forced to leave in panic. They had simply left, taking nothing with them except themselves. In the evening, Zara 4 received reports from her team members. The pattern was the same everywhere. Empty homes with fresh food still in cooling units. Empty schools with lessons still written on teaching boards. Empty hospitals with medical equipment still running. Empty shops with merchandise still arranged on shelves, but in the main library, her team found something interesting. A Quarterly officer named Grix had discovered a section of the building that was different from the rest. Unlike every other room in the colony, this one looked like it had been deliberately prepared. Zara 4 went to see for herself. The room was filled with computer servers and communication equipment. On a large table in the center, someone had left a collection of data storage devices. Next to them was a handwritten note. The note was short and written in simple galactic standard language. For whoever finds this, these files contain everything you need to maintain the colony systems. The automated caretakers will handle most tasks, but complex problems may require manual intervention. Instructions are included. Thank you for your service. Zara 4 picked up one of the data devices and plugged it into a portable reader. The files contained detailed technical manuals, maintenance schedules, and system passwords. Everything someone would need to keep the colony running. They planned this, she said quietly. They did not leave in a hurry, they prepared for their departure. Over the next several days, Zarafor's team searched 6 more human colonies. The story was always the same. Empty settlements running perfectly, with automated systems maintaining everything. In each place, they found the same kind of prepared information packets, always with polite notes thanking whoever found them. On the 7th colony, they found something different. This settlement was smaller, more remote. It had been a research station studying plant growth on alien worlds. Like the others, it was empty but functioning. But here, they found a longer message. The message was a video recording left on the main computer in the research center. It showed a middle-aged human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore the simple work clothes of a scientist. "My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez," she said in the recording. "I am leaving this message for whoever comes looking for us. We know you will come looking because that is what civilized beings do when their neighbors disappear." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "We want you to know that we are safe. We are not in danger. We have not been attacked or forced to leave. This was our choice, and we made it together." Dr. Vasquez continued, "We have been watching and waiting for a long time. We hoped things would change. We hoped that one day the other species in the galaxy would see us as equals instead of useful servants. But that day never came." The recording showed her walking around the research station, pointing to different pieces of equipment. "We built these systems. We maintained your trade routes. We solved your conflicts. We fixed your problems. And for all of that work, we were given the seats in the back of the council chambers and treated like junior partners in our own galaxy." She returned to face the camera. "So we have decided to step away, all of us, every human in every colony and on every world. We are going somewhere new, somewhere we can build the kind of civilization we want to live in." The recording ended with coordinates to a distant galaxy and a final message. "If you ever decide you want to work with us instead of simply using us, you know where to find us. Until then, take care of yourselves. You are going to need to learn how." Zarafor watched the recording 3 times. Each time, she understood more clearly what had happened. Humanity had not disappeared. They had left. All of them together, quietly. And completely and now the rest of the galaxy was going to have to figure out how to live without them. The first sign of real trouble came from the Outer Rim trading posts. Commander Wraith 7 of the Zephyrian Trade Authority received the emergency message while reviewing shipping schedules at his desk. The message was from Station Bait 9, a large commercial hub that served dozens of star systems. The station manager, a nervous nibbling named Squeaks, sounded panicked. "Commander, we have a serious problem. The supply shipments are not arriving. The medical supplies, the food shipments, the manufactured goods, the raw materials, nothing is coming in. Our storage facilities are almost empty." Wraith 7 frowned at his communication screen. "What do you mean nothing is coming in?" "Check your shipping schedules. Contact the suppliers." Squeak's furry face twisted with worry. "That is the problem, sir. Most of our suppliers were human companies. They handled 60% of our regular cargo runs. Without them, we do not have enough goods to supply the colonies in this sector." The communication ended, and Wraith 7 sat back in his chair. He had been so focused on finding the missing humans that he had not thought about what their absence would mean for daily life across the galaxy. Humans ran shipping companies, but they also ran many other businesses that everyone else had simply taken for granted. Over the next few days, more emergency messages arrived. A Corthary military outpost reported that their weapon maintenance systems had failed. The repair protocols were stored in databases that only human technicians knew how to access. Without proper maintenance, their defense systems would be useless within weeks. A VEX mining operation on the edge of the galaxy sent word that their ore processing equipment had broken down. The machines were human-designed, and the repair manuals were written in complex technical language that the VEX could not understand. The entire operation had stopped working. Wraith 7 began to realize that the problem was much bigger than anyone had imagined. He called an emergency meeting with his department heads. How much of our trade network depends on human involvement? He asked his chief logistics officer. The answer was shocking. Sir, humans control or manage approximately 40% of all cargo shipping routes in the galaxy. They also provide technical support for most of our communication networks and maintain many of the automated systems that other species rely on. What about manufacturing? Humans develop most of the standard manufacturing protocols that we use. They also supply critical components for everything from starship engines to medical equipment. Wraith-7 felt sick. And food production? Many agricultural worlds use farming techniques and equipment developed by humans. Some colonies depend entirely on human-grown crops for their food supply. The meeting lasted for hours. With each report, the situation became clearer and more frightening. Humans were not just another species in the galactic community. They were the invisible foundation that held everything together. News of the crisis spread quickly. Within a week, panic began to spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions every day, trying to figure out how to handle the growing problems. Counselor X9 found himself working 18-hour days, coordinating relief efforts and trying to prevent complete economic collapse. But every solution they tried revealed another problem that humans had been quietly solving. The communication networks that connected different star systems started failing. It turned out that humans had been maintaining the relay stations and updating the software that kept messages flowing across the galaxy. Without their constant work, the systems began to break down. Medical emergencies arose on several worlds. Hospitals discovered that many of their diagnostic machines and treatment protocols had been developed by human doctors and scientists. Without access to human medical knowledge, doctors from other species struggled to treat diseases that had been easily cured. Just weeks before, trade disputes that had been settled peacefully for years suddenly flared up into serious conflicts. Investigating teams discovered that humans had been working behind the scenes as mediators, quietly resolving disagreements before they became wars. Without human diplomats to smooth over problems, old rivalries began to resurface. The most frightening discovery came when Counselor Vash was reviewing historical records. She was trying to understand how the galaxy had functioned before humans became so involved in everything. What she found made her blood run cold. Hidden in the archived files of the Council's security department, she discovered records of human intervention in dozens of conflicts over the past 50 years. Humans had prevented 3 major wars by providing secret intelligence to peacekeeping forces. They had stopped the spread of a deadly plague by quickly developing vaccines and distributing them to affected worlds. They had even prevented the collapse of several star systems by secretly providing emergency supplies and technical support. In every case, the humans had worked quietly and asked for no recognition. The official records credited other species for these successes. No one had realized that humans were the ones actually doing the work. Vash brought these findings to the full council. The Great Hall was more crowded than usual, filled with representatives from species across the galaxy. Everyone was dealing with shortages, equipment failures, or growing conflicts in their territories. "My fellow council members," Vash announced, "I have discovered something that explains why our civilization is falling apart so quickly." She activated the large display screen that hung above the council floor. Document after document appeared, showing human involvement in maintaining galactic stability. For the past 50 years, humans have been secretly holding our civilization together. They prevented wars, stopped diseases, maintained our technology, and solved problems that we did not even know existed. A Corthery general stood up. "That is impossible. Humans are primitive. They have only been in space for a few hundred years. They could not possibly be more advanced than species that have been traveling between stars for thousands of years." Vash displayed another set of documents. These are technical specifications for the faster-than-light communication system that we all use. It was invented by humans. This is the design for the universal food synthesizers found on most space stations. Also invented by humans. These are the medical treatments that have eliminated 12 different diseases across the galaxy, all developed by human scientists. The hall went silent. Representatives looked at each other with growing understanding and horror. A Vex collective member named Unity 12 spoke in their musical voice. We assumed these technologies came from the older, more advanced species. We never questioned their origins. That is exactly the problem, Vash replied. We were so convinced that humans were inferior that we never bothered to ask who was actually creating the innovations that improved our lives. We simply took credit for their work and treated them like junior partners. Vex 9 stood up slowly. His old body felt heavy with the weight of realization. All this time we thought we were teaching them how to be civilized. But they were the ones keeping us civilized. Over the following days, more discoveries were made. Investigation teams found evidence that humans had been quietly managing dozens of critical systems across the galaxy. They had maintained the delicate balance of trade that kept everyone fed and supplied. They had monitored dangerous situations and intervened before they became catastrophes. They had even been secretly protecting several species from threats that those species never knew existed. The most painful discovery came when archaeologists examined the ruins of an ancient war zone on the planet Keth Prime. The area had been destroyed in a conflict between the Zephyrians and Korthri over 100 years ago. But recent analysis of the battlefield showed evidence of human involvement. Humans had been there, working to minimize the damage and protect civilian populations. They had evacuated refugees, provided medical care to wounded soldiers from both sides, and helped rebuild the destroyed cities after the war ended. All of this had been done in secret, with no recognition or reward. As these revelations spread across the galaxy, a terrible understanding began to dawn on every species. They had not been superior to humans. They had been dependent on them. And now, without human support, their entire civilization was crumbling. The galaxy that had seemed so stable and prosperous was revealed to be a fragile construction held together by the quiet work of a species that everyone had dismissed as unimportant. Now that the humans were gone, the true nature of galactic civilization was becoming clear. They were all helpless without the people they had never bothered to respect. The war started on a Tuesday. General Krex of the Korthri 3rd Fleet had been watching the Zephyrian ships move closer to the disputed mining system of Vega 7 for 3 days. Without the usual human diplomatic channels to send messages between the two fleets, misunderstandings were growing by the hour. On Monday, a Zephyrian scout ship had scanned Krex's flagship. To the Zephyrians, this was a normal information gathering operation. To the Korthri, it felt like preparation for attack. Krex sent a warning message, but it was written in formal Korthri military language that the Zephyrians found threatening. By Tuesday morning, both fleets were positioned for battle. Neither side wanted to fight, but neither side was willing to back down. In the past, human mediators would have stepped in by now. They would have arranged a meeting, translated the real meanings behind the formal messages, and found a solution that both species could accept, but there were no humans to call. The first shots were fired when a nervous Zephyrian weapons officer mistook a Korthri communication probe for a missile. Within minutes, both fleets were engaged in full combat. Ships that had been built for defense and exploration were suddenly firing on each other with deadly intent. General Krex watched in horror as the battle escalated. This was not what he had wanted. The mining rights dispute could have been settled peacefully. But without human diplomats to help both sides understand each other, fear and pride had taken over. The Battle of Vega 7 lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 12 ships were destroyed and hundreds of beings were dead. The mining system that both species had wanted to claim was now a debris field of broken metal and bodies floating in space. News of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. Other old conflicts that had been kept quiet by human intervention began to flare up as well. The Arachnid Federation suddenly declared that the Nibbling colonies in the Tau system were built on stolen land. The Nibblings insisted the colonies were legal, but without human lawyers who understood both species' legal systems, the dispute quickly turned violent. Arachnid warships surrounded 3 nibbling worlds and demanded their immediate evacuation. The Vex Collective began expanding aggressively into neutral space, claiming they needed more territory for their growing population. Other species protested, but the careful balance of power that had kept the Vex contained was maintained by human-designed treaties that no one else fully understood. Without human legal experts to interpret the agreements, the Vex simply ignored the protests and continued expanding. Even worse problems began appearing in the outer colonies. A plague broke out on the farming world of Terra Nova 4. The disease was not new, it had appeared before and been quickly contained. But the vaccine that prevented its spread had been developed by human scientists. The formula was stored in human medical databases that other species could not access. Dr. Zeth-3, the chief medical officer of the Zephyrian Health Authority, worked desperately to recreate the vaccine. He had samples of the original medicine, but without the complete formula and manufacturing process, his attempts kept failing. The human approach to medicine is completely different from ours, he explained to the Emergency Medical Council. They think about diseases in ways that do not make sense to us. Their treatments work, but we cannot understand why they work. Within 2 weeks, the plague had spread to 6 other worlds. Thousands of beings were sick and hundreds had already died. The cure existed somewhere in abandoned human laboratories, but finding it and understanding how to use it was proving impossible. The communication networks continued to deteriorate. Messages that used to take hours to travel between star systems now took days or weeks. Some messages never arrived at all. The relay stations that humans had maintained were breaking down one by one, and no other species knew how to repair them. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades began to fail. Ships got lost when navigation systems stopped working properly. Cargo deliveries were delayed or sent to the wrong destinations. Several trade ships simply disappeared, probably destroyed when they tried to take shortcuts through dangerous space. The humans had always helped them avoid. Counselor X9 had not slept properly in weeks. His office was filled with emergency reports from across the galaxy. Every day brought news of new disasters, new conflicts, and new systems failing. On his desk lay a report that made him feel sick every time he looked at it. The Centauri colonies were running out of food. For 50 years, those colonies had imported most of their nutrition from human agricultural worlds. The colonists had never learned to grow their own food because it was easier and cheaper to buy from human farmers. Now, the human farms were empty, maintained only by automated systems that could keep the plants alive but could not harvest and ship the crops. The Centauri colonists were facing starvation, and no other species had the agricultural knowledge to help them quickly enough. How did we become so helpless? X9 asked his assistant during one of their daily briefings. The young Zephyrian looked tired and confused. Sir, I have been studying the old records. Before humans joined the galactic community, we had these same problems all the time. Wars, plagues, failed harvests, communication breakdowns. The humans did not create new solutions. They just worked constantly to prevent the old problems from happening. X9 nodded sadly. And we never noticed because we were too proud to pay attention to what they were actually doing. The worst news came from the border regions where dangerous alien life forms lived beyond the edges of civilized space. For generations, scouts had reported strange signals and unexplained ship disappearances near those areas. Everyone assumed it was just the normal hazards of deep space exploration, but investigation teams now discovered that humans had been quietly monitoring those regions and preventing something terrible from spreading into inhabited space. Human research stations had been studying hostile alien species and developing defenses against threats that other species did not even know existed. With the humans gone, those monitoring stations were empty. The defenses they had built were failing. And something hungry and dangerous was beginning to probe the borders of the galaxy. Commander HFY of the Deep Space Patrol sent increasingly urgent reports to the Council. We are detecting movement in the void sectors. Large biomechanical signatures approaching our outer colonies. These are not any species we recognize. The automated defense systems left by the humans are still active, but they will not hold. For long, the Council tried to organize a response, but they quickly discovered another problem. The different species had never learned to work together effectively without human coordination. Zephyrians, Corthari, Vex, and all the others had completely different military traditions. Communication protocols and strategic thinking, human military advisors had always served as translators and coordinators, helping the different species combine their strengths into effective joint operations. Without humans to bridge the gaps between different approaches to warfare, the various fleets could barely communicate with each other, let alone fight together against a common threat. As reports of the approaching alien menace spread, panic began to set in across the galaxy. The civilization that had seemed so advanced and stable was revealed to be a fragile collection of species that could barely take care of themselves without human support. The galaxy was falling apart, and everyone was finally beginning to understand what they had lost when humanity walked away. But understanding the problem and solving it were two very different things. Without the humans they had taken for granted for so long, the other species were discovering just how helpless they really were. The consequences of their neglect and arrogance were spreading across the stars like a plague, and there seemed to be no cure for the disaster they had brought upon themselves. The message arrived on a quiet Thursday morning when the galaxy was at its darkest hour. Counselor X9 was sitting in his office, surrounded by reports of disasters from across the known worlds. The Corthari-Zephyrian War had spread to involve 6 other species. The alien entities from the void sectors had destroyed 3 outer colonies and were moving deeper into inhabited space. Food shortages affected half the galaxy, and the communication networks were so damaged that some star systems had been completely cut off for weeks. His communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. The sender was listed as Earth. Diplomatic Archive. Final transmission. X9 stared at the screen. Earth had been silent for months, just like every other human world. He opened the message with shaking hands. The message began with a simple text document. No video, no audio, just words written in clear galactic standard language. To the members of the Galactic Council and all civilized species, it began. This is the final official communication from the human species to the galactic community. We are sending this message now because we believe enough time has passed for you to understand what has happened. The X9 read faster, his heart beating quickly. We want to be very clear about something. We did not leave because we were angry or because we wanted to hurt anyone. We left because we were tired. Tired of being ignored, tired of being dismissed, and tired of doing the work that kept your civilization running while being treated like children who needed constant supervision. The message continued. For over a century, humans have served as the invisible foundation of galactic society. We mediated your conflicts, maintained your technology, solved your problems, and prevented disasters that you never even knew were coming. We did this work gladly because we believed that one day the other species would recognize us as equals and partners in building a better galaxy. X9 felt sick as he read the next part. That day never came. Instead, you gave us seats in the back of your council chambers and treated our contributions as if they were lucky accidents or the natural result of your own superior guidance. When human scientists cured diseases, you credited your medical institutions. When human engineers fixed your failing systems, you assumed it was just normal maintenance. When human diplomats prevented your wars, you congratulated yourselves on your wisdom and restraint. The message went on to list specific examples, dozens of them. Human interventions that had saved millions of lives, prevented wars, and maintained the stability that everyone took for granted. In every case, the official records credited other species for the successes while ignoring the humans who had actually done the work. We realized that you would never see us as equals as long as we continued to quietly fix your problems for you. So we decided to step back and let you discover your own capabilities. We hoped that perhaps this experience would teach you to value cooperation over hierarchy and partnership over dominance. Vex-9 scrolled down to find technical information. Detailed instructions for repairing the communication networks, treating the plague, coordinating military operations against the alien threat, and managing the food distribution crisis. Everything the galaxy needed to survive was laid out in clear, simple language, but the most important part came at the end. We are not abandoning you forever. We are simply giving you the opportunity to grow up. When you are ready to work with us as equals instead of using us as servants, you will find us in the Andromeda Galaxy, building the kind of civilization we always dreamed of creating together. The message included star charts showing the exact location of the human colonies in Andromeda. It also included communication frequencies and contact protocols. We will wait for as long as it takes. When you contact us, do not come as rulers, seeking subjects, or teachers looking for students. Come as friends seeking friends. Come as partners ready to build something better together. We will know the difference. The final line was simple. Until that day, take care of each other. You are all we have left to love in this galaxy. Vex-9 read the message 3 times before he understood what it really meant. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy out of spite or anger. They had given everyone else a chance to prove that they could be better than they had been. He immediately called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Within hours, representatives from every remaining species had gathered in the Great Hall. Many appeared by remote communication because travel between worlds had become so difficult. Vex-9 read the human message aloud to the assembled beings. As he spoke, he watched the faces of the council members change. Shame, understanding, and hope appeared in eyes and expressions across dozens of different species. When he finished reading, the hall was completely silent. Counselor Vash was the first to speak. They gave us everything we need to fix our problems. Even after we treated them so badly, they are still trying to help us. A Vex collective member named Harmony 12 spoke next. We have been acting like children fighting over toys while the adults were trying to teach us how to share. When the adults left, we discovered that we do not actually know how to take care of ourselves. The discussion that followed was unlike any council session in galactic history. For the first time, representatives openly admitted their failures and limitations. They talked honestly about how dependent they had become on human support and how badly they had treated the species that had been keeping them all alive. Corthery General, who had been fighting in the war against the Zephyrians, stood up. I want to contact the Zephyrian fleet and arrange a ceasefire. The humans are right. We have been fighting over nothing while real threats destroy our worlds. A nibbling medical researcher spoke next. My team will begin working immediately to implement the plague treatment protocols the humans provided. But we should also start training medical teams from all species to work together, the way the humans always did. One by one, the council members began making commitments. They would share technology instead of hoarding it. They would work together to fight the alien threat instead of competing for glory. They would treat each other as equals instead of trying to establish dominance, but the most important decision came when Vex-9 proposed sending a delegation to Andromeda. Not yet, said Unity 9, speaking for the Vex Collective. We are not ready. The humans will know if we go to them now, we will still be the same species that failed them before. We need to prove to ourselves that we can be better. The Council voted unanimously to begin the work of rebuilding galactic civilization on principles of equality and cooperation. They would use the instructions the humans had provided, but they would also learn to work together in ways they never had before. It took 5 years to end the wars and establish lasting peace between the species. 5 years to develop new systems of cooperation that did not depend on any single species to maintain them. 5 years to build relationships based on mutual respect instead of hierarchy and dominance. During those years, they faced many challenges. The alien threat was defeated by a joint fleet that included ships from every species working together as equals. The plague was cured by medical teams that combined knowledge from dozens of different worlds. The communication networks were rebuilt. stronger than before, designed to be maintained by rotating teams instead of depending on one species. Most importantly, they learned to see each other differently. Instead of viewing other species as competitors or servants, they began to appreciate the unique strengths and perspectives that each group brought to the galactic community. When they finally sent a delegation to Andromeda, it was not a mission of desperate former enemies seeking help. It was a group of friends reaching out to other friends, ready to build something better together. The response from humanity was immediate and warm. "Welcome," came the reply. "We have been waiting for you. Come home." And for the first time in galactic history, the word home meant a place where everyone belonged as equals.